And they proceeded to write a scathing obituary that branded him the Merchant of Death. Welcome to Curious World History. I am Colleen.
And I'm Albert.
Hello, Albert.
Hello.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the audience before we start?
We moved back in.
We moved back into our house, so we're no longer at the hotel, which is great.
There's still boxes.
There's still boxes. It's not quite settled, but we're getting there, right? We're making progress. Well, it's been a while because we've had so many things going on in our lives, but we are excited to be back and talking about a famous person who is maybe known for something that it doesn't tell the whole story about his life. Why don't you tell me who we're talking about?
Alfred Nobel.
Alfred Nobel. Do you want to start by telling me a little bit about him?
Sure. So, his full name is Alfred Bernhard Nobel.
Mm-hmm.
He was born October 21st in 1833 in Stockholm, Sweden.
Okay.
And he died December 10th, 1896 in San Remo, Italy.
San Remo, Italy. That's right. Who do we know who is also from Sweden?
Charlie and
his mom, Monica, right? So we'll say hi to Charlie and Monica and hello to Jason. We miss you guys. So why don't you tell me more about Alfred Nobel?
So, he was the fourth son in the family.
That's right. And what did his father, Emmanuel Nobel, do? Now, his mother's name was Andrietta Alcel. So we tried to figure out how to say that last name. We're hoping we're not butchering it. But his father, Emmanuel, tell us what he did.
He was an inventor and engineer.
An engineer, that's right. So the Nobel family had they had a business that was involved in machinery. They made armaments. Do you know what armaments are for? So it's arms, like in warfare. The kinds of like weapons, and they also did experimentation with explosives. So they did blasting and construction work, but the blasting also ended up getting used in warfare as well. So tell us more about Alfred.
So his major inventions were a blasting cap or a detonator.
Okay.
And another one's dynamite.
Okay. And what was dynamite? Do you know why dynamite was such an exciting invention?
Because it can blow up.
It can blow things up, but it was actually pretty portable. Like it operated pretty safely, whereas the explosives before that were not so safe. As a matter of fact, in their family business, the Nobel family business, Emil Nobel, who was the youngest son, went into business with his father. And he was working there in Sweden in 1859. At one point when he was working there, something terrible happened. Do you know what happened?
He died.
He died because the explosives that they were working with were very fragile. They were not stable. And because they were unstable, sometimes different movements or, a change in temperature or something else like that could cause an explosion. So unfortunately, Emil died. I believe he was about 20 years old, which is so very young. And that broke Alfred's heart. So we think that's part of why he was inspired to work with creating dynamite and invented that. Now, do you know why dynamite is called dynamite?
No.
It's because he was trying to figure out what he could mix nitroglycerin with. And nitroglycerin is the thing that goes boom, right? It's the explosive part. So they were playing with nitroglycerin and trying to figure out what could they mix it with that they could transport it and it would make it more stable so that they could move it around and it would be less sensitive to temperature differences and things like that. So he tried to find something to mix it with, and he looked at the earth around where he was working at the time. And the earth there was a little bit different. It was almost clay-like in some ways. It's called diatomaceous earth. So diatomaceous sounds a little bit like dynamite, right?
Mhm.
So that's what he did. He took the beginning of that word diatomaceous and he turned it into dynamite. Now, of course, there's probably going to be a geologist or another scientist who will be listening to this and tell me that I am pronouncing that completely wrong, but it was worth a shot.
Mhm.
What else did you learn?
He had a interests in a wide variety of industries, including chemicals, and other enterprises.
That's right, because they were working not only with nitroglycerin, but they worked with something else called gelignite, and it was a blasting gelatin, right? So they worked with something called ballistite, which is a smokeless powder, and they use that as a propellant as well. It later was used in rocketry and firearms. What's rocketry?
Something.
With rockets.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were making rockets go. What else can you tell me?
And his brothers
Mhm.
were involved in an oil company
Okay.
in Baku.
Okay, Baku, I see that too. I'm not really sure where that is. I've never seen that word before.
Mhm.
And did you know what else they used that blasting for?
No.
So it was also used in a way for construction, either blasting through hillsides or blasting through rocks that are in the way, things like that, making caves, mines, all kinds of stuff. As a matter of fact, my grandfather on my father's side, William Berry, was involved in construction. He had his own construction company in Bristol, Connecticut, and they used to use dynamite to blast
Mm.
through rocks.
And he was he wrote poetry,
That's neat. That
um
was kind of unexpected when I saw that.
and drama,
Hmm.
but he was not famous.
No, not for that. He kind of was a private guy. I think he kept those things mostly to himself. Did he ever marry or have kids?
No.
Hmm. I remember when I was reading about him for this, I felt like it was quite sad that he hadn't gotten to have a family. I mean, families aren't for everybody, right? Some people, that's not their thing. But I don't know. He seemed kind of lonely based on, I guess there was correspondence with a couple of women that he seemed to care for a great deal, but it never turned out to work into a long-term relationship.
Mhm. Um and he was in some relationships
Hmm.
with
Sophia Hess is how I would say her name.
okay.
So Sophia Hess was one of the ladies that we believe he loved in a romantic way. And then there was another lady as well, Bertha von Suttner. And Bertha von Suttner was a peace activist, and she may have been an inspiration for something he did later in his life.
Mhm.
And what is that thing that he did later in his life?
The Nobel Prize.
The Nobel Prize. And Bertha being a peace activist, the Nobel Peace Prize is actually among the first fields that they had involved in the Nobel Prize committee. So do you know why he worked on the Nobel Prize, why he created that?
No.
This is a very interesting story. In 1888, Alfred Nobel's brother, Ludwig, died in France from a heart attack. And unfortunately, one of the reporters is believed to have gotten the name wrong. So they thought it was actually Alfred who had died, not his brother Ludwig. And they proceeded to write a scathing obituary that branded him the Merchant of Death. And that is an incredibly terrible thing to call somebody, the Merchant of Death. But they accused him of growing rich by developing new ways to mutilate and kill. And while they later corrected it, he had already read it, and he felt pretty terrible about what his legacy might be. So that led him to really think about another way to be remembered by creating those prizes. So I think it's a pretty interesting story. Now, some historians say that that story is not real, but I think it's a pretty great story.
Yeah.
Do you know which group actually used dynamite a lot for terrorist attacks?
The military?
Good question. So terrorist attacks are done by non-military groups and the anarchists. Do you remember which episode we talked about anarchists in? They were accused of blowing something up.
Oh, the molasses flood.
That's right. So anarchists at the time that the molasses flood happened, which was in the early 1900s, they were using dynamite because they could transport it because it was more stable. So you transport it around, they would light a fuse, and then it would blow up whatever
Yeah.
they put it in. So that's right. In the first episode of our podcast, we talked about the Boston molasses flood, and the anarchists and dynamite actually play a role in that story. What else could you tell us?
Later in 1968,
Well, actually, can you tell us first which fields were original?
the original fields were physics, chemistry,
Physiology.
physiology, or medicine, literature, and peace.
That's right. Those were the original prizes that were specified in his will. What prize was added later?
Economic sciences.
Perfect. I love that. That's amazing. So what happened to Alfred Nobel? When did he finally pass away?
He died December 10th, 1896.
That's right. Yeah. So pretty amazing. He accomplished a great deal. He accomplished a lot of things that I think he's not actually famous for because of his efforts to create the Nobel Prize. But it's pretty interesting that he had such an interesting life that had to do with science and chemistry and art. You know, if you think about the poetry and drama. Is there anything else you'd like to say about Alfred Nobel?
No.
Okay. Well, Albert, thank you so much.
Welcome. This is Curious World History.